no intentions of seeing Wicked. For a few reasons, actually. I'm not really a fan of The Wizard of Oz. I acknowledge it as a historical piece of cinema, but for some reason it just never resonated with me. Also, some of the cast interviews have seemed very odd to me, and I'm really not a fan of musicals. So it just didn't seem like this was made for me at all, so I was going to skip it. But it's been such a huge hit, and I've heard some pretty positive things about it. Plus, my daughter kept saying how awesome it was and that I should see it. So I figured, you know what? What the hell? Let's step out of our comfort zone and see what this movie is. So what do we have here? Were my first instincts correct? Should I have avoided this movie? Or could it actually, surprisingly, be something that I liked? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot to the movie Wicked.
Shall we talk about that?
Now, unless you've lived under a rock for the last 20 years, you probably know, at least the basics of this plot. Our movie centers around Elphaba. She's a bit of a misfit because of her green skin. It's quickly realized, however, that she actually has magical powers. She tries her best to hide these from everybody. When she takes her sister to Shiz University, she draws the attention of one of the professors who realizes that she is much more than she seems. But because of her green skin, she doesn't fit in and is mocked, especially by the super popular Glinda. However, the two girls forge an unlikely but profound friendship, and Glinda, a student with an unflinching desire for popularity, tries to take Elphaba under her wing. However, following an encounter with the Wizard of Oz, their relationship soon reaches a crossroads as their lives begin to take very different paths. So what works in this film? Listen, I have never been a fan of Ariana Grande. I remember my daughter would watch the show Victorious, and I thought she was the least talented and most annoying performer on that show. Again, I know she's a very popular singer, but her music, it just isn't for me. But man, I gotta give her all the credit in the world here. She was the one who plays Glinda, and her acting here is actually excellent, and her singing is wonderful. As with Cynthia Erivo, who plays Elphaba. She gives a pretty incredible performance. Both her singing and her acting are fantastic. In fact, the chemistry between our two leading ladies is really excellent. Both young actresses really give it their all, and it shows up on the screen. And while I mentioned that I'm not a big fan of musicals, I really did like most of the songs in this. Especially What Is This Feeling and Defying Gravity. Big time kudos go to the cinematographer and director of this movie. The production is top notch. The models, the CGI, the practical sets are really well done. You can see that they spent their money wisely to put this movie together. Finally, veteran actors Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum, they put in good performances here. Michelle Yeoh plays Madame Morabella. She's the professor who first notices Elphaba. And Jeff Goldblum plays the wizard himself.
Really? That's great!
What didn't work for me here, however, was this is a 2-hour and 40-minute long movie, and it's only part one. Now, I never saw the play. From everything I read, it's about a 3-hour long play. Now, they want to separate these movies into 2 parts because money. I mean, it's going to be a massive hit, so why not have 2 massive hits? I just felt like at times I got a little restless. You could have easily cut about 45 minutes off this film and lost nothing. And finally, despite this runtime, I felt the payoff at the end was a bit rushed. Look, I'm not going to spoil this for you, but I think everybody knows that this movie's about the transformation of Elphaba into the Wicked Witch of the West. And it just seems like that final transformation at the end of the movie took place over like a 10-15 minute time period. In 2 hours and 45 minutes long, you could have fleshed that out a little bit and had a better payoff. But you know something? I'm man enough to admit that my initial instincts were wrong. Listen, it's not a perfect film. It's definitely not something I would normally recommend, or even say that I liked. But despite my few complaints about it, I really enjoyed this movie much more than I thought I would.
I enjoyed that.
So, led by stellar performances in both terms of acting and singing by Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, Wicked is actually a very entertaining film. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's perfect enough to bring joy to any musical theater fan, and maybe even convert some non-believers, much like it did me. If you're already a fan of this play, you're probably really going to like this. And if you're not, and just want to give it a shot, you're not going to hate it. I think you might actually have a good time with it. I would definitely recommend seeing it in the theaters if you want to see it, just because it hits better on a big screen.
Huh. Wow, I did not expect that.
Well, that's all I got for you this week. Tune in next week where I give you my thoughts and feelings on whatever I've seen. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment or a question, share this video with friends and enemies alike, and as always, thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.